Hi, this is Lee Ferguson, and this is the second video in the series about interactive notebooks, advanced notebook construction. In the first video, which was the introduction, you learned what an interactive notebook was. You also learned how to construct a basic notebook for use as an interactive notebook. So in this video, what we're going to learn is how to insert a bookmark, how to attach ties to shut the notebook, and how to add pockets. All of these are organizational tools that will help you and your students keep your notebooks organized and fully functional. First, let's talk about adding bookmarks. The first couple notebooks that I built didn't have bookmarks, and it wasn't until I saw a student with one in her notebook and I asked her, hey, how did you get the idea to do that? And she said, church hymnals, they have bookmarks all the time. And I thought, that's really clever. She said it was very difficult for her to find her place. And so she finally actually ended up inserting a bookmark into her notebook. And so since then, I've actually inserted bookmarks into all of my notebooks as well. So let me show you how to place a bookmark. So adding a bookmark is going to make it easier for you to find your place in the notebook during the year, especially since if you're taping two notebooks together, they get pretty big. And so to do this, you're going to need about a yard of ribbon. About 20 inches of that ribbon will be for the bookmark itself, and then the rest of the ribbon will be for the tie that shuts the book. If you're using two notebooks, then you're going to want to fasten this to the inside back cover of the first notebook. To me, it's easier to do that. The first time I made a bookmark, I actually learned that it was not beneficial for me to do it in the very back cover of the notebook. So I actually insert it into the back inside cover of the first notebook. So the first thing you do is you'll want to tape down the ribbon to affix it. I generally run the ribbon about midway through the cover. Then I use just a regular desk stapler to fasten the ribbon to the back cover. And then finally, I can just bring the bookmark through the front of the book, and there's my bookmark. Sometimes I attach buttons to the bottom, sometimes I attach little trinkets to the bottom, but you don't have to. Again, I get pretty fancy with my notebooks, but hey, you don't have to get as fancy as I do, but this is what I do with mine. Now let's talk about adding ties to close your notebook. This is another tool that I got as an idea from a student. So let's talk about how to add that. Keeping your notebook shut as it grows in size is actually going to be pretty important, because what you're going to notice is as you work through the school year in the notebook, it's going to get rather bulky. And it's going to get that way fairly quickly depending on how you use your notebook. And so a tie helps to keep it shut so that things don't fall out. This is actually pretty important, especially if you use the notebook as a way for your students to organize their coursework, as I do. I don't have my students keep a separate binder. Everything they do in class is kept in this notebook. So any tool I can give them to help them stay organized, even if it just means like a structural tool in their notebook, is a pretty important one. So here's how we go about attaching the ties. So using the rest of the ribbon that you have, obviously split the rest of that 16 inches of ribbon in half, tape it down about midway in the front cover of your notebook on the inside, and then staple it to the inside. You want to make sure that when you staple, though, that the flat part of the staple is facing the outside. This is more for safety reasons than anything else. You don't want to accidentally cut yourself on the front of the notebook. Another thing that you can do too is notice that the prong part of the staple is on the inside of the notebook. Tape over it so you don't cut yourself. I know I do that, but I also put things over that, which I'll cover in another video, that prevent me from cutting myself on the staples. You'll also want to repeat the same process for the back cover of the back notebook so that you have two ties that can then tie your notebook shut. You can also add pockets to your notebook. This is actually a really helpful thing because this is how you can keep certain handouts and things that you give your students organized. There are several different types of pockets that I use in my class notebooks. There's a folded page pocket. Then there's what I call just the simple attached pocket, which is also pretty easy to make. And then what I call the corner slide pockets, which again, I learned from a student. And what you see here in the picture is actually specialized pockets that I found at the Container Store that are just self-affixing, but you can make them yourself out of index cards or paper. It's very simple, and I'm going to show you how. The first type of pocket we're going to talk about is what's called a folded page pocket. It takes up 2 notebook pages. It's also really good for larger handouts that are maybe packets. So like the one you see here in the picture is a 2-page packet that was an activity that my students and I did about population dynamics. And this wasn't really something that they could just tape down as a singular thing in their notebook because it was something I was going to take out and grade. And so I had them make pockets like this to keep that particular activity in their notebook. So what you do is you take the previous page, fold it diagonally, and then fold it on top of the next page and tape around the outer edges of the pocket to close it up. And then you can label the pocket however you like. I mean, obviously you see here that I've labeled it with the name of the activity and the formulas that my students would use. The simple attached pocket is pretty easy. It's just a 1/4 sheet of paper. It holds single sheets. It's best for items that are going to be removed from time to time. So in the beginning of our notebooks, we have several different pages for reference materials that the students look at all year long. A formula chart, the course syllabus, the safety contract, all of that. These are things that the kids pull out of the notebook over and over and over again. And so I have them usually attach a pocket like this to do that with. So you just got a 1/4 sheet of paper and tape around the edges. Really easy. The last pocket is called a corner slide pocket. These are really good if you're conserving space in a notebook, especially if you're only using one notebook. These are best for single sheets of paper, but they can hold packets as well. So if you're just using one notebook, this kind of pocket is probably going to be one of the best ones that you can use because it does conserve quite a bit of space. And again, the pockets that you see here are ones that I purchased at the Container Store, which are just these little corner tab things that have self-adhesive on the back. But you can make them just as easily from an index card or another sheet of paper. You cut that index card in the diagonal, tape down the outer edges to create the corner pockets, but be careful, don't tape the inner edge. If you tape that, you don't have a pocket, you have a triangle. So be careful. All of these different tools can help you and your students to organize your notebook and to keep things inside. Next in the series, notebook organizational tools. Be ready to learn about a table of contents, tabs, and other organizational tools you can use to help you and your students keep your notebooks organized. I hope that this was all helpful information, and I look forward to teaching you again next time.